Have you ever experienced something like this? There's an important promotion opportunity at work, and you know about it a week in advance, but instead of preparing, you spend your days scrolling on your phone. Then, the night before the deadline, you stay up rushing to finish your proposal, and the result is a sloppy plan full of mistakes that costs you the chance. Or think back to school. You wanted a good grade, but before the exam, you chose to play games instead of studying. When the results came out, you told yourself, "It's fine, I just didn't study." Maybe you even hesitate to ask your crush out for a movie on Saturday, waiting until Friday to send the message. You clearly want those opportunities, yet you keep doing things that hold you back, and later regret not trying harder. It's not laziness or lack of motivation. It's a psychological phenomenon called self-handicapping, when you intentionally create obstacles for yourself. What is self-handicapping? Self-handicapping, also known as self-sabotage, was first introduced by psychologists Edward Jones and Stephen Berglass in 1978. At its core, it describes a behavior where people, when facing an important task or opportunity, intentionally create obstacles to protect their self-esteem from the pain of potential failure. They might procrastinate, hold back effort, or make excuses, so even if things go wrong, they can blame the obstacle instead of their own ability. In simple terms, self-handicapping is finding excuses for failure in advance. For example, afraid of being called stupid if you fail an exam, you purposely don't study, so when you score poorly, you can say, "I just didn't study, it's not that I'm dumb." Afraid of losing face if your confession is rejected, you act indifferent, so if you're turned down, you can tell yourself, "I wasn't that into them anyway." Afraid your project might fail and others will think you're incompetent, you delay starting it until the last minute, then if it doesn't go well, you can say, "I just ran out of time." Importantly, self-handicapping doesn't mean you don't want success. It means you're afraid of what failure might say about you. Just like the person who procrastinates on an important proposal, they genuinely want the promotion. But they're scared that even if they try their best, they might still fall short and be seen as incapable. So they use procrastination as a psychological safety net. Even if they fail, they can still believe, "I just didn't give it my all, it doesn't mean I'm not good enough." The psychological mechanisms behind self-handicapping. When people intentionally create obstacles for themselves, it's usually driven by two key psychological mechanisms that help protect their sense of self-worth. 1. Self-worth protection. Avoiding the failure equals incompetence belief. According to self-worth theory, one of our most fundamental psychological needs is to maintain a sense of self-worth, and perceived ability plays a central role in that. When we face an important task directly, failure can easily be interpreted as, "I'm not capable," which deeply threatens our self-esteem. By creating obstacles in advance, people can shift the blame for failure away from their ability and toward those external obstacles. For example, if you work hard on a proposal but it still gets rejected, you might think, "I must not be good enough, I couldn't even make a solid plan." But if procrastination caused the proposal to fail, you're more likely to think, "It's just because I didn't spend enough time on it, not because I lack ability." This attribution shift, moving the cause of failure from internal ability to external factors, is the core psychological mechanism behind self-handicapping. It allows people to protect their internal sense of competence, even when outcomes are poor. 2. Uncertainty avoidance. Reducing anxiety about unknown outcomes. Humans naturally try to avoid the anxiety that comes from uncertainty. When facing an important opportunity, the outcome is unpredictable. It could be a success or a failure, and that uncertainty creates stress. Self-handicapping helps reduce this anxiety. By creating obstacles in advance, the result becomes more predictable. Even if you fail, you can blame the obstacle instead of confronting the possibility that you simply weren't capable. For example, you're unsure whether thoroughly preparing a proposal will succeed. This unknown creates anxiety. But if you procrastinate, you can be certain the outcome won't be perfect, because you didn't invest enough time. This controllable negative outcome feels safer than the unknown possibility of failing despite giving your best effort. Who is more prone to self-handicapping? Anyone can engage in self-handicapping to some extent. But the following 3 types of people are more likely to fall into this pattern. 1. Highly sensitive individuals with low self-esteem. People who are highly sensitive and have low self-esteem tend to have a lower tolerance for criticism and failure. They care deeply about how others perceive them. And when they fail, they fear others will judge them harshly, which can instantly threaten their sense of self-worth. To protect themselves, they often create obstacles in advance, such as procrastination or deliberately putting in less effort. This way, even if they fail, they can tell themselves, "It's not that I'm incapable, I just didn't try," while also reducing the risk of negative evaluations from others. For example, a person with low self-esteem going on a blind date might deliberately act awkwardly, fearing that if they try their best and still get rejected, it would prove they are unworthy of being liked. If they perform poorly and get rejected, they can rationalize, "It's because I didn't try, not because I'm unworthy." 2. People with perfectionist tendencies. People with perfectionist tendencies hold extremely high standards for outcomes, believing that anything short of perfect equals failure. They fear putting in effort yet still falling short, so they set up barriers in advance by not trying fully. This way, if things don't turn out well, they can say, "It's just because I didn't try hard enough. If I had, it would have been perfect," sparing themselves from admitting, "I gave my best but still couldn't reach perfection." For instance, a perfectionist working on a project might deliberately procrastinate, worrying that even with full effort, there would still be flaws. When procrastination leads to mistakes, they can justify it by saying, "It wasn't that I couldn't make it perfect, there just wasn't enough time." 3. People who have experienced repeated failures. Those who have repeatedly failed at important tasks in the past, such as studying hard but still performing poorly on exams, or working diligently on projects that still got rejected, gradually develop the belief that, no matter how hard I try, I'll still fail. To protect themselves from the pain of trying hard only to fail again, they begin to engage in self-handicapping, using not trying as a shield against the hurt of trying and still failing. For example, someone who has studied seriously for several exams but never passed may deliberately avoid studying for the next one. If they fail again, they can tell themselves, "It's because I didn't study," instead of facing the crushing thought, "I gave it my all, and it still wasn't enough." The potential harm of long-term self-handicapping. Occasional self-handicapping may temporarily protect one's sense of self-worth, but over time, it can cause significant harm, creating a vicious cycle. The more you self-sabotage, the more you fail, the more you fail, the more you self-sabotage. Missing opportunities and wasting potential. People who engage in long-term self-handicapping often miss valuable opportunities they could have otherwise seized. For instance, someone who procrastinates on an important project might actually have the ability to do it well, yet ends up missing a promotion due to delays. Or someone who deliberately behaves poorly on a blind date, despite being genuinely compatible with the other person, loses the chance for a meaningful relationship because of self-sabotage. Over time, this pattern leads to wasted potential and reinforces a painful belief, "Maybe I really can't do anything right." Eventually, this deepens into chronic self-doubt and self-denial, developing the habit of not trying and losing motivation. Self-handicapping makes people focus on finding excuses rather than figuring out how to do things well. Over time, this mindset turns into a habit of avoiding effort, gradually draining motivation and reinforcing patterns of laziness and procrastination. For instance, someone who becomes accustomed to not studying before exams will instinctively procrastinate the next time they face a task that requires effort, and eventually, they may find themselves unable to take meaningful action at all, damaging relationships and being seen as unreliable. Self-handicapping behavior often comes across to others as irresponsible or unreliable. For instance, when someone repeatedly delays team tasks, colleagues may think, "You can't be counted on." When they're consistently late for important appointments, friends may feel, "You don't value me." Over time, such behavior can quietly erode relationships, leading to a loss of trust and support from others. How to break free from the cycle of fear and self-handicapping. Escaping the trap of self-handicapping doesn't require an overnight transformation. It starts with 3 simple steps. Step 1. Recognize the signs of self-handicapping. The first step is to become aware of when you're engaging in self-handicapping. Common signs include procrastinating, scrolling through your phone, or doing unrelated tasks when facing something important. Making excuses such as, "This task is too hard, I'll never do it well," or "I'm not in the right mindset to handle this right now." Deliberately avoiding preparation, for instance, not studying before an exam or skipping research before a project. When you catch yourself falling into these patterns, pause and ask, "Am I making excuses because I'm afraid of failing?" For example, if you're procrastinating on a project, remind yourself, "It's not that I don't have time, I'm just afraid that even if I try my best, it still might not be good enough." Recognizing this hidden fear is the first and most crucial step toward change. Step 2. Shift from a result-oriented mindset to a process-oriented one. People who self-handicap often focus too much on whether the outcome is good or bad, while overlooking whether they've truly given their best during the process. That's why it's important to shift your attention from results to process, and remind yourself, "As long as I do my best, it's okay even if the result isn't perfect." For example, when preparing a project proposal, don't think, "I must get approved and earn a promotion." Instead, think, "I'll do thorough research and carefully craft every part, even if it doesn't get approved. I'll still gain something valuable." When going on a date, don't think, "I have to make the other person like me." Instead, think, "I'll have an honest, engaging conversation, even if it doesn't work out. I've still met someone new." When you focus on the process instead of the result, you naturally reduce your fear of failure, and with it, the impulse to self-sabotage. Step 3. Start with small tasks and build up successful experiences. People who have been self-handicapping for a long time often lack genuine experiences of success. That's why it's important to begin with small tasks, take initiative, put in effort, and rediscover what success feels like. You don't need to start with a big challenge like a promotion project. Instead, focus on completing your daily tasks with care, and allow yourself to feel the quiet satisfaction of doing something well through effort. You don't need to begin with a high-stakes date either. Start by having sincere conversations with friends, and notice how being genuine naturally attracts appreciation. Each small success strengthens your sense of self-efficacy and gradually rebuilds confidence. Over time, you'll start to believe, "When I put in effort, I can do well." As this belief grows, the fear of failure begins to fade, and the need for self-handicapping slowly disappears. Self-handicapping doesn't mean you're lazy or unmotivated. It means you're afraid of being judged or devalued after failure. And you're trying, in a clumsy way, to protect your sense of self-worth. But true self-worth isn't built on excuses, it's built on acknowledging yourself. Regardless of the outcome, as long as you've given your best, you don't need to fear failing even after trying, nor fear being looked down on after failure. Even if you try your hardest and still don't succeed, that experience is far more meaningful than giving up without trying. Even if others reject you, it's still better than rejecting yourself first. May you break free from the cycle of self-handicapping, stop using self-defeating behaviors as a form of protection, and find the courage to try, to put in effort, and to face the possibility of failure with calm acceptance. After all, those who dare to give their all, even if they don't succeed, have already triumphed over the version of themselves who never dared to try.